sudden he just switches to yes, yes, yes. It was so funny. As for Russell, he's just still doing his thing. Anyway, the next day, Kyle is getting.
Welcome to the Video Store Geek Podcast, where your friendly neighborhood world film geek, Albert Valentin, talks about films made and released during the golden age of the VHS era.
Happy August, my favorite fellow video store geeks. Welcome to the latest episode of the Video Store Geek Podcast, where I, your indie film geek, Albert Valentin, talks about the older movies released and made during the VHS era. Well, this month we are celebrating Deezen August. We're going to be celebrating 3 films this month, starring the awesome quintessential nerd actor that is Eddie Deezen. But we're focusing on his collaborations with director Fred Olen Ray. And we're going to start out today with one of my all-time favorite films from this duo, and that is the 1988 film Beverly Hills Vamp. This is the story of an aspiring filmmaker who comes to Hollywood, and after a night of debauchery discovers that his friends are turning into vampires thanks to the brothel workers that they go to. It's kind of like think of Once Bitten, but amped up with the nudity and so much less on the gore. But anyway, this is a fun and wild film. I really enjoy watching this. As a matter of fact, I just watched it again right before recording this episode again because I just had to do it. It's just maniacally fun, and we're gonna do what we usually do. We're gonna talk about the film, give a little bit of trivia if anything, and I'll give my final rating on this. So let's get started. So the film starts out with an introduction from Professor Somerset, played by the awesome Pat McCormick. If you don't know that name, definitely check him out in the Smokey and the Bandit films as Big Enos Burdett. But he describes about vampires. He gives this little funny take on vampires and the theory that vampires exist, not only in reality, but they also exist in major cities all over the country. And this turns into a little funny homage to the 80s PSAs for reading, where he goes, the Big Book of Vampires, now at your local library. Check it out. And then there's a disclaimer from director Fred Olen Ray saying that apparently this is a true story. Everyone who lived and died are in this movie. And just to be aware that vampires are real. And it is probably this is such a funny disclaimer because it doesn't end with sincerely. It ends with trust me on this, Fred Olen Ray, something like that. And it's really hysterical to see this. But we're gonna get right into the film. So it's about these 3 aspiring filmmakers. We have Kyle, who's a screenwriter, Russell, who's a cinematographer, and Brock, he's kind of like the director of the group. Now, our man Eddie Deezen is Kyle. He's the nerdy one of the group, and he's the only one of the trio who actually has a girlfriend. Don't ask. But his buddies Russell and Brock don't, and Brock is played by Tim Conway Jr. That's right, the son of the great Tim Conway of Carol Burnett's fame, and and Dorf. And his son is he gets to show some of his comedy gold in this film. And as for Russell, he's played by Tom Shell, who the only other film I can remember him in is Troma's Surf Nazis Must Die, where he's the rookie member of the Surf Nazis named Smeg. But here he kind of looks more sheepish and nerdy compared to his role as Smeg here. But anyway, they are on their way to spectacular action pictures in Hollywood. Brock's uncle, Aaron Pendleton, is a hotshot producer, or claims to be a hotshot producer, and they want to pitch their latest film to him. And upon meeting him, they also meet his secretary, Sherry Santa Monica, and I shit you not, that is her name. And she's played by Dawn Wildsmith, who's also in Surf Nazis Must Die, who played Ava, the female leader of the group. But I believe at this time she was actually married to Fred Olen Ray, hence the little cameo here. But it's pretty funny because they wanted to, while they're waiting for Brock's uncle Aaron to let them in the office, they have a little conversation with Sherry, even offering her a role in the film. But anyway, they go meet Aaron, and Aaron's not really interested in the film, it seems, because according to Kyle, the film is just this love story, and they don't really, even though there's a script, he's like, people don't really look at scripts today. But he has an idea for a film, and I guess he wants them to get involved. It's something called like Motorcycle Sluts from Hell, which is pretty funny. It reminds me of a film called a couple of years later that was released called Chopper Chicks in Zombie Town by Troma. And hopefully that's the last of my Troma references. But anyway, he tells them, it's going to be a few days, to think it over. So just hang out in the area. Well, anyway, Brock and Russell are freaking lonesome and pretty horny. So they look up these personal ads, and they're just pulling Kyle into it. And you can see Kyle is really not comfortable with it because of the fact that he has a girlfriend, this cute little blonde named Molly, played by Bridget Burdine. And they have these little conversations. Anyway, they find this one number, and it's at a brothel in Beverly Hills run by Madame Cassandra. They decide to go there, and that night they meet the butler Balthazar, played by Ralph Lucas, who looks looks horrible. Hilarious. He looks like a hilarious wannabe vampire. But anyway, he brings the guys in, and then we get to meet not only Madame Cassandra, played by the legendary Britt Eklund, but we get to meet our three other vampires, and they are Claudia, played by the late great Gillian Kestner of Firecracker fame. Firecracker is an amazing martial arts exploitation film that came out in 1981. And sorry, guys, Gillian Kestner does not get to fight in this movie, and that would have been cool, but we don't get that. Then we have Jessica, played by Deborah Lamb, and she's very sultry. She's really, she brings that sex appeal to the role, and she's coming back. She's made a comeback. She's still doing films today, believe it or not. She's got one coming out later this year called The Morning Architect, which I'm excited to check out. And just a few months ago, she was on Rhonda Shear's Up All Night, so on Roku. So check that out. And finally, we have Christina, played by Michelle Bauer, who was somewhat of a muse of Fred Olen Ray during this time because she also starred in his other film that was released just around this time, Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers, and she's the one who appears on the main poster of the film, and she plays one of the titular characters. But here she plays Christina, and she's the most horniest of the vampires, I will say, because every chance she gets, you see like her introductory scene is she is biting the crap out of a victim while pretty much on top of him, butt naked. Like how that's how horny this character is. I'm not joking when I say this. Sorry, children. But anyway, Russell and Brock get with Claudia and Jessica. Russell is just like taking photos of Jessica like crazy. Meanwhile, Brock and Claudia do their thing. Kyle is still on the edge of not feeling comfortable. Christina tries everything she could to try to lure Kyle in, but Kyle wasn't having it. Ultimately, Kyle ends up leaving, despite even at one point getting hypnotized by Christina and Madame Cassandra, but he eventually breaks from the shell and he runs away. But he soon realizes Brock and Russell haven't returned. You could guess what happens next. Brock ends up becoming a vampire because Claudia bites him, and first Brock is like, no, no, no. And then all of a sudden he just switches to, yes, yes, yes. It was so funny. As for Russell, he's just still doing his thing. Anyway, the next day, Kyle is getting worried. So he heads back to the mansion, and we see Balthazar now dressed in a proper suit rather than his bathrobe, whatever, this little Fernando Lamas looking gear that he had on. But now we see him in a full suit. He's claiming that, oh no, that's not possible. We just moved and stuff like that. We're moving. And when Kyle walks in, everything is covered and no one is to be found except for Balthazar. So Kyle is baffled. He tries to tell the police what's going on. And when they discover that the brothel, the mansion is located in Beverly Hills, they're like, that's out of our jurisdiction. We can't do anything. So Kyle's in a bind. But he decides to turn to Aaron, Brock's uncle Aaron, to see if he can get any help from him. So Kyle just busts in to the office, and Brock shows up. But now Brock is looking a little paler. He's got bite marks on his neck. His hair is out of place, like hair's all over the place. And Kyle takes one more test. He borrows Sherry's compact and no reflection. So he tells Brock, uh, he tells Brock he's a vampire, but I'm laughing because it's Brock's reaction. He goes, I knew this would happen. And they were like, they don't know what to do, Brock. But what Aaron doesn't understand is why is Brock able to walk in the daylight if he just got bit? And maybe, Kyle has a good point. Maybe when someone just becomes a vampire, they haven't turned yet. They still have a little bit of ability to walk in the daylight. And, Brock goes, my parents never knew I amount to anything. Look, and he just looks at him like real funny. And then they ask what they're gonna do, and Aaron comes with the idea that he knows a priest that could possibly help them out. So they have Brock stay in the office, and they tell Sherry to just keep an eye on Brock, make sure he just gets what he needs. And this is so funny because once Sherry asked Brock if he needed anything, Brock breaks the fourth wall in the most hilarious way. It's just like he's just looking and has this big goofy smile on his face. And then Aaron and Kyle go to meet Father Ferraro. Father Ferraro is played by the legendary Robert Quarry, and I can't tell you what he's known for yet because he's going to break this himself. He's going to tell us who he played just by something. But anyway, they meet with him. He's wheelchair bound, and he asks first thing he asks is, "Are you casting for a new movie?" He puts up his rosary. He goes, "Beyond Satan," and Aaron's like, "Oh no, we're not really casting Satan. We're thinking more of a vampire." And once Father Ferraro hears that, he goes, "Begone Count Yorga." Count Yorga is actually the film that Robert Quarry was known for because he played Count Yorga in two films back in the 70s. So it's so funny how he paid homage to his own character just by saying that. But anyway, he gives him advice on how to. At first, he's skeptical. He doesn't believe that Brock is a vampire, but they try, and Aaron and Kyle try everything to prove that, yeah, he is. But what happens is, um, meanwhile, all this is going on, and Molly, Kyle's girlfriend, discovers where he is, so she decides to go to California to look for him. And she gets lured into the brothel as well by Balthazar. But meanwhile, when Aaron and Kyle hatch a plan, they decide to go back to the brothel at night because they know that's when the vampires are going to strike or show up. And they launch it all out of, well, can't so much say Aaron does because Aaron kind of, first of all, the first vampire to get confronted is Claudia, and Aaron is trying to shoot her and puts his gun down his pants by accident. So Kyle ends up having become the vampire hunter himself by putting a cross to Claudia's head, which causes her to bleed green, and it leads to Aaron saying the funniest line. And you can tell it's kind of in post because it just the way it sounded. But he goes, "Hey kid, what'd you do to her? She's bleeding guacamole." But yeah, that's what pretty much happens. Kyle and Aaron have to try to stop the vampires because they figured it's the only way they can save Brock from turning. They'd have to kill the head vampire, who was, of course, Madame Cassandra. So that's pretty much what the film is. I mean, I watched this when I was about, I want to say, 10 years old. And of all places, I saw it on Joe Bob Briggs Drive-In Theater on the movie channel. That's the first time I saw it. I was like, I wasn't expecting some of the stuff to happen in this film, like Michelle Bauer's intro scene. I was not expecting that, but it looked like something that could have came out of a softcore porn film. But I wasn't even expecting Bat McCormick to shoot his scene. I believe that his scene, because of the way the credits roll at the end of the film, I think his scene might have been shot during post-production. Nevertheless, this was a hilarious movie. This is really funny. Eddie Deezen is the reason to see this, and Tim Conway Jr. He kind of brings some of his dad's comedy flair to the film, to his role of Brock. he's kind of like a dopey, smart alecky type. But he does it so good here, especially after he's transformed. It's just when they're in the office together, that scene just like it just cracked me up. Like watching Tim Conway Jr. do his thing. It reminded me of his dad on Carol Burnett, and I highly recommend you check that out if you're into old school comedy. You got to watch Tim Conway Sr.'s, especially the dentist bit is one of the best ever. It's one of the best classics ever. But our boy Eddie here, Eddie Deezen, he is hysterical. He's really funny in this movie because he just gets to make all the goofy faces. When he's hypnotized, he makes like these goofy faces. He's freaking out like half the movie. And when he's like a vampire hunter, when he has to go vampire hunter, it's pretty funny because even at one point he breaks the fourth wall at some point during this third act, and it's quite funny. The ending was kind of unexpected. I wasn't expecting how it would end altogether, but overall, this is a fun film. The cast was great in this movie, quite frankly, and let's see if there's any trivia to this film. So let's just check that out for 1 second, and we'll see if there's any trivia. Well, there is a few trivia bits. There aren't that many, but as I mentioned about Robert Quarry, he does mention his own character of Count Yorga. But interestingly enough, before Britt Eklund was cast as Madame Cassandra, Sylvia Christel was actually considered for the role of Madame Cassandra. It's after Fred Olen Ray saw her in the movie Dracula's Widow, which was released prior, and he thought that she would have made a good Madame Cassandra. Um, yeah, I could see it, but I think Britt Eklund did a good job here as well. I definitely would think that. Now, here's one that's got to be mentioned because we are going to be talking about this in a future episode. In the scene where Aaron, Kyle, and Brock are in the office, and Kyle's asking Aaron what they should do. Aaron mentions the priest, and he goes, "Yeah, I casted him in a movie called Teenage Exorcist." Guys, there is a movie called Teenage Exorcist, and as a matter of fact, we will be covering that film this month on Deezen August. It's actually the third of their collaborations. So this will be the third episode this month of Deezen August because we're going to be covering another one of their. We're going to be covering more of a comedic collaboration between the two on our next episode. And also apparently Joanna Pacula, if you don't know what it is, she's a famous actress in the 80s and 90s who is known for playing these roles with sex appeal. One of my favorite roles with her was a film called Private Lessons. It was a essential reboot of the 1982 film with Sylvia Christel. They did a reboot in Japan, a Japan set reboot where she played the Sylvia Christel role, but she's a tutor, an English tutor to Goro Inagaki's student character. And in the US, they released the film as a sequel, Private Lessons 2. But Joanna Pacula apparently auditioned for the role of Christina, which went to Michelle Bauer, but I guess turned it down for specific reasons. I'm not sure what. Maybe it might have been the campiness of the role. I don't know. But anyway, that's pretty much all the trivia there is. And this was a film that was coming out when Beverly Hills was becoming the big thing. Start with Beverly Hills Cop. Then you had Beverly Hills Cop 2, Beverly Hills Brats, Down and Out in Beverly Hills. You even had a cartoon, Beverly Hills Teens. And this was before that little breakout show called Beverly Hills 90210. So, yeah. So this was like one of the long lines of these Beverly. Oh yeah, and there was another action film called The Taking of Beverly Hills. But anyway, yeah, this was when Beverly Hills was becoming a hotspot for movie titles or TV titles. It was becoming the rage. But yeah, that's all the trivia for this film. So as for my final rating, yeah, this one's getting an A easily because this is so campy. It doesn't take itself seriously. It's really funny. It's really goofy, and that's what the intention is. It's to make a horror comedy that has a nerdy actor in the nerdy character in the lead role. Your sleazy producer type who's like who helps him out, and it's just all around goofy fun. And it's meant to be goofy fun. It's just crazy, and there's not much gore in it. There's like this more, just the neck biting, and even that's subtle. And even when the vampires get killed, it's not like over the top geyser stuff like the Lost Boys. No, what happens is when these vampires die, basically become a flash of light and they disappear. That's all it is. And with this cool music, and yeah, I mean, it's not bad. It's actually quite a fun film. It's more. I would say if it's rated R, it's more because of the sex appeal of the film, the TNA, rather than the violence. I mean, of course, there's vampire violence, but the vampire violence itself is more like PG-13 rated. It's more about the TNA in this film. And Professor Somerset even mentions that in his intro. He says that this is a movie made by filmmakers who casted actresses with breasts bigger than their own heads. I don't know about that so much, but but yeah, as someone who enjoyed this movie as a, just a goofy, don't take it seriously type of movie, it gets an A in my book. So that's it for Beverly Hills Vamp. And you could try to find it. I don't know if it's available on streaming anywhere, but you could try that little site called the Internet Archive. You could find a thing there, most likely. And you can find some clips on YouTube. But overall, it's a wild, fun film. If you like vampire horror comedies, like Once Bitten, but you want to see something a little more exploitative, this is the film for you, I think. So, with that said, I will be returning on August 17th with the second of our Deezen August titles with Fred Olen Ray. In terms of their collaborations, we're going to be talking about a gangster comedy that they did together. Again, not to be taken too seriously. It's all, well, some parts are, but we're going to talk about a film called Mob Boss, and that was released in 1990. So don't forget to subscribe. If you like this episode, please subscribe, hit that notification bell. If you want the latest in indie and global cinemas, go to my other channel, Indie World Cinema. We got some new interviews. We have a new interview that's going to be up today, as a matter of fact. And we also check out the blog indieworldcinema.com for film reviews, features, and all of that involving indie films and world cinema. So that's all I gotta say about this. As always, guys, thank you for your support, and be kind, rewind, and stay awesome. See you guys next time.
Thank you for listening to the Video Store Geek Podcast, created and produced by Albert Valentin. For the latest in indie films and global cinema, check out indieworldcinema.com and see you on the next episode. Be kind, rewind, and stay awesome.